All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Monday Live, lots and lots of news to cover here. Also, we are on Pixel Planet, but that's just Ouroboros flag repair. So, link in the description if you want to take that. It's just a fun time. Last night, there was a Turkish streamer, oddly enough, has twice as many subscribers as me, but less than half as many people showing up for live streams, which is interesting. I guess it's just for shits and giggles. But they were griefing basically all of Europe and then decided to turn the cannons on a few things and clanked them. So the Ouroboros flag temporarily became a very, very derpily made, hastily and shittily made Turkish flag there. It's being repaired as we speak. So you can pour in. I'll look at that momentarily throughout the stream, I suppose. Let's make sure that we're live on Rumble. Oh, yeah, I've got my audio off. Okay. Yes, we are indeed live. I see that chat is working, unlike a couple of times out there. So yeah, you can take that link if you want to and help out with the Ouroboros flag repair. Yeah. Anyway, first news story, because it's a fairly major one. I'll launch right into it. Giorgia Meloni victory in Italy is Putin's best case scenario. Yes, there are no liberals out there celebrating Italy breaking the glass ceiling. They've got their first female prime minister. Instead, they're basically calling her Mussolini 2.0. It's the most fascist thing ever. It's the most right-wing bloc government since Mussolini's era. Oh my God, she's a Eurosceptic. Clearly, genocide is coming. Well, I made a video this morning explaining. If you look at the party that Meloni represents, she's like literally a Lord of the Rings LARPer, by the way. So, very, very scary individual, I'm sure, making jokes about melon boobs and shit like that throughout the other day. Very, very threatening individual. If you look at their actual platform, the Euroscepticism is even less than like UKIP-style Euroscepticism. It's the belief that it should be devolved into a more confederated as opposed to a global superstate kind of form. So instead of Brussels managing the majority of business, individual states would majorly manage their own affairs, and they're tied together as part of an economic bloc, basically, which makes sense. It always has. I see compatriot news to this. Right now, you see a bunch of astroturfing by people who are against the idea of UK independence, trying to blame Brexit for their pound sterling having problems against the US dollar. I pointed out years ago when Brexit first happened that almost immediately what would happen is that globalistic groups would start to say anytime that there was an economic issue that Brexit was responsible. Well, clearly Brexit didn't cause lockdownerism. The UK's government, whether under the EU or not, would have made the same decisions. That's responsible for the fact that your currency fucking sucks right now and is almost at dollar parity. I would point out the euro has the same issue. So why is it that the anti-Brexit people are being taken seriously by anyone on that claim? Euro has the same fucking problem as the UK's pound. So what's the goddamn difference? And who gives a shit about the exchange rate with the US dollar anyway? You're inflating your currencies too. You've got problems looming in Europe. I also warned years ago that you would see uprising new political parties or reformed older political parties. Of course, the Fratelli d'Italia, which is Meloni's party, is older. It's been around for a while, but it's been retooled, and now they've won. They've got the majority share of the vote between them and their bloc partners. It involves several other political groups. Thankfully, and this is the good part, her particular movement, having been retooled, is basically just populism. It's focused on we need to maintain our border status. We're tired of the migrant crisis, which makes sense. We're tired of hard Europhilia. We want a soft Euroscepticism. That's not a fascistic platform. The idea of devolving supranational authority back down to the individual nation states, if anything, is the opposite of what one would expect from a fascist regime. That's number one. And maintaining one's borders to try to make sure that the working and middle class have decent wages, that you're not being overrun, that you trying to tackle crime, especially property crime, I suppose. That's not fascism. Now, the idea that that has anything to do with fascism is revisionism. It's Marxist revisionism, really. The closest thing in the world that exists to fascism right now is what you see from the US and Russia, really more than anyone else. the retooling of industry to be a direct accomplice of government in what it wants to do. The U.S. is doing this with the legacy media. Explicitly, it's even bragged about, as well as big tech. Russia's doing this with their productive capacity, with the energy industry, et cetera. There's a co-opting, a fusion or quasi-fusion of state power with corporate power. That is fascism. Well, that's not what Meloni's party represents. It doesn't appear anywhere in their platform. I see no mention of it by Meloni or anyone else in the party that that's anything that they want to do. Some of them admire Mussolini more or less, but I mean, he could balance an economy. I suppose that's the main reason why. Who cares? Oh my God, one of these people said something on their MySpace page back in 2005 that they kind of like Mussolini's style. Clearly, they're a fascist. Oh my God, the world is going to hell. Westfield 90, best advice for Meloni is to stick to why people elected you and be bold. Learn from Boris and Trump's failings and try and placate activists and media. Well, you won't be able to placate the media, just to be clear. That won't happen. I'm not sure what Trump failings you're speaking of. Comparing him to Boris Johnson at this point, I think, is a little bit beyond the pale. Just saying. Yeah, MAGA basically is a precursor to this, as well as the UK independence movement, Front National, although economically they're further left than Macron. Similar movements you see in places like Hungary, certainly Poland, even in Russia itself. It's happening all over the world. The globalism's not working. People are waking up to that. The problem is that they're proposing 5 or 6 different ulterior solutions to globalism, to the neoliberal globalist sleaze that we have today. I don't believe in going hard left and saying, oh, fuck globalism, we'll be commies now. That's not going to work. We've tried it before. Just because you're replacing, and I would tell the Italian people this as a cautionary message. While this particular block seems to have sense, and I don't think they're going to wreck your country, be very, very careful about being fickle with the fact that they're not going to achieve literally everything that they want to do because it's politically impossible in the average nation. Be careful of going further out there into reactionary land and finding yourself in a situation where you're endorsing a non-working ideology simply because the current ideological trend is being reversed too slowly. It's better to have slow change and progress than to throw the baby out with the bathwater and fuck yourselves in the ass. This is what every actual extreme ideology wants you to do. We see it from all the stupid Nazbols. We see it from socialists and commies. We see it from the hardline reactionaries. Now they'll tell you like MAGA didn't succeed at enough of its goals. It's not enough. Clearly, we need something more hardline. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Let's adopt ideologies that have already failed in the past. If anything, we should go back to classical liberalism in the United States. I think that Italy is doing a good job, and I think that Meloni will generally succeed. They're afraid, by the way. You can expect globalistic attacks on the Italian economy. That's already been threatened by the EU, by the way, for a reason, in order to try to convince people that it is Meloni's fault and her party's fault. This will unwittingly exacerbate the situation that they perceive of as existing. It'll be very interesting to see how far the EU is pushed before it commits that kind of political suicide. Smoo Johnson, have you ever gone viral on Twitter before yesterday? Yeah, I was retweeted by Donald Trump's page, actually, at one point. Back in 2020. Mr. Wonderful. Berlusconi's back, baby. Make bunga bunga parties great again. Not a banned account. Will the new IRS really knock down doors for taxes? They already do. It's just that they do it sporadically because they don't have enough manpower. By the way, when people say it's not 87,000 new IRS agents, that's just total employees. How many of them will be militarized to knock down doors? 10,000, 20,000 of them? They seem to be buying up a lot of guns and ammo lately. Not that they haven't done it before. Next news story. Misery index. Bidenflation remains sky high and Americans aren't fooled. Yes, I wanted to talk about this for one particular reason. You keep getting and the Dow keeps dropping, by the way. You keep getting astroturfing that somehow Roe v. Wade is going to be the big kicker of the midterm elections. Abortion, the Dobbs decision, is going to be on everyone's minds when they go into the polling booth. But if you look at polls, you find a completely different story is being told. The top 3 issues are all economical. There is occasionally the number 3 issue is crime or the border, depending on who you ask. And it's not spot on across the country. If you're going to ask in Arizona, the border is probably in the top 3. If you ask in New York, unless, if you ask in Massachusetts, I guess you'd get that answer too. The border is probably the number 1 concern now that Martha's Vineyard has been targeted by Ron DeSantis. Now, if you go to like New York or Pennsylvania or something, you're not going to see the border on that as an issue. The only places in which abortion seems to be a significant issue in the midterms, outside of voting blocks that were already decided on who they were going to vote for 90% of the time anyway, either they're evangelical, they're voting Republican generally, and they're doing that because they hate abortion and they like the Dobbs decision, or they're on the left wing of politics. They want abortion to be unrestricted, and so they're going to vote against the Republicans. They're going to vote Democratic generally. Those people are limited to a few areas in the country as far as their population goes. Most of the country is not rock-ribbed evangelical anymore, even in parts of the former Bible Belt. Most places are not far left. You're talking about coastal elite sort of cities, Chicago and so forth in the Midlands, and that's it. I don't think it'll be a top 3 issue. I think, if anything, it won't even be a top 4 issue. I think it'll fall a 5th or 6th. I think it's going to be prices, inflation, and attendant to that, gas prices especially, or energy in general. Crime will be on there. That's not really an economic issue, at least on the nose, at least directly, but it'll be there. The border. These are things, education. Education is ahead of abortion. These are things on which the GOP has an advantage. The fact is that the misery index remains high. You've got significant inflation. You've got a much higher cost of living. A lot of it's aimed at housing and energy. These are the worst things, and food. The worst things, the basic necessities, a place to live, food to put in your belly, and the ability to heat your home and get to work are kind of important for the average American. But the Democrats keep trying to astroturf the concept that it's all about those wombs, baby. I don't think that that's going to work out too well for them. Westfield 90. Trump's failing was having a cabinet sabotage him. He should have fired every Obama leftover. He also let himself get distracted by battles with the media. It's good that someone was battling the media. James Willis. Liberty consists in clanking what one desires. Not a banned account. Will the U.S. confiscate fully semi-automatic guns? Yes, clearly. Liam Sexton. Sticks, just to let you know, wokeness had infected the military, but only at the upper levels. All us grunts mostly just kind of laugh it off. We still do all sorts of crazy crap, especially overseas, where I am currently. Oh, I know that the average person in the military is not going woke just because the cadets manual tells them to. That being said, if you infect the upper brass of the military that make all of the decisions and plan all of the exercises and run the show, if you make them woke, generally speaking, the grunts have to follow orders. Those orders might be a little bit different than when we actually attempted to fight communism rather than trying to become communists. Soapmaker 19, morning Sticks. I work in healthcare. Can you do a video about the massive staffing shortages therein? Our healthcare system is on the road to collapse. I should probably cover that. Not a banned account. Will healthcare hire back people fired by the mandate? I don't know what the plan is. If they do it, they will do it quietly. Let's put it that way. Very quiet. Much like when they decided to incept the last bit of border improvements that Trump had already funded, Biden didn't want that one being front page news now, did he? Next news story. January 6th committee member Jamie Raskin suggests he has no idea who Ray Epps is when asked by GOP Representative Thomas Massie, which is problematic because he literally spoke with him. Revolver News founder Darren Beattie highlighted this clip from Wednesday's House Judiciary Committee markup, full video below, where January 6th committee member Jamie Raskin tells GOP Rep Thomas Massie he does not know who Ray Epps is. I literally have no idea what you're talking about, Raskin said when Massie accused him of defending Epps, the guy who was seen acting so suspiciously the night before January 6th that a crowd of people accused him of being a federal provocateur. The exchange occurred during an extended partisan debate about January 6th, during which an unrelated House Judiciary Committee markup on Wednesday. See, the problem is that the committee has already discussed and gotten material from Epps. So we know that this is a lie. He is aware of who Ray Epps is. Now, let me give my opinion on Ray Epps. Keeping in mind that we're streaming on YouTube, I'll be a little bit minced in my words here. I do not allege that Ray Epps glows in the dark. I really don't, or anything like that. Although the video speaks for itself, and you can fucking look that up on your own if you haven't already seen it. What I would say is this. It is very interesting that an individual that was there on January 6th and appears to have goaded people to enter the Capitol is the one person that the Democrats do not want to sit in a cell, the one person they do not want to look into, the one person they do not want to subpoena, speak to, or investigate. Just one individual. Everyone else, there are people that are still rotting in solitary confinement after more than a year for simply entering the Capitol building. In this case, this particular individual doesn't appear to be of any concern to them. They would rather not discuss them and don't recall who he is. I find that telling. If there were shenanigans going on with regards to feds whipping people up and trying to entrap them, I would expect this kind of behavior. I don't allege that's what's happening, wink, wink, for legal reasons, but it's what I would expect. This is exactly how I would expect it to play out if there was a glowing one that was riling people up on January 6th, trying to get them to throw the bottle, trying to get them to get into the Capitol, trying to get them to hit a police officer. I would expect this to be the case if those individuals looking into it understood that the individual was a plant of some sort. So I'm not making any allegations, but I am allowed to address it. I find it a little bit suspicious. Westfield 90, during 2016 campaign, Trump's chant was lock her up. From day one in office, he dropped that. That's when deep state and media knew he was a pushover. No, he dropped that because it was hyperbole to begin with. It was hilarious, by the way. I told people at the time there's not going to be any locking up of Hillary Clinton because there's no capability to lock her up. By the way, this will be the case for Trump too. Wait and see. Mungi, Crowder took flack over his libertarianism comments. He criticized make your own Twitter belief without acknowledging the deep government fist in tech's butt, going against free market ideas. Seems reasonable. Your thoughts? Yeah, big tech is deliberately and explicitly partnered with the government at this point. They're not even really trying to hide it. There was a FOIA release not a few weeks ago that showed explicitly coordination and communication between members of the Biden admin and the Intel community and groups like Facebook and Twitter. In some cases, even deliberately asking them to kick material off or individuals off their platforms because of Russian disinformation. All I could think of was the Hunter Biden laptop cover-up that still doesn't get talked about by the legacy media. The FBI approached Facebook coincidentally at exactly the same time that the first story broke about Hunter Biden's laptop and told them, hey, boy, be careful of Russian disinformation. Wink, wink. We're totally not saying that it has anything to do with the news that you saw this morning and will surely see tomorrow as well. It has nothing to do with it, but just watch yourself. Be reasonable. Be rational. Do more against disinformation. Like, I believe that. But the problem is that we then have a whistleblower alleging, hey, inside the FBI, they weren't talking about that. They were saying they wanted to squash the story for political reasons. Whoops. Yeah. Coincidental timing. 48 hours. That's basically all it took. These people, they were sweating. They were shitting their pants when they saw the story first broke because they knew it was true. They knew that the Hunter Biden laptop existed. They knew the story lined up. They don't want to look into it now, do they? Cindy Drellick. Yes, healthcare worker here too. We are dying. So are many of the people that you do healthcare on. Lance Corporal Veteran, I think this sums up the 2022 elections. The average Roman only cares about the pebble in his shoe by Cato the Elder. Basically, it's the economy, stupid. Exactly. Abortion's a big issue for some people, but for those that it's a big issue for, they generally have already decided who they're going to vote for. The only effect will be on turnout. That means that people who are heavily tilted towards being in blue state or blue district areas will turn out more for the Dems. They'll get more votes because of that. Evangelicals that tend to be in red states or in red districts within states will turn out more from the GOP to praise them for Dobbs. It doesn't matter. They're already in red districts, generally speaking. It's certainly not going to have any effect on the House. It might have an effect on the Senate to an extent, but not a huge one. Especially when we might be getting massive amounts of economic news over October, and I can't imagine much of it will be good. Gas prices appear to have stagnated and maybe inch back upwards. We're going to get a new inflation report. It's probably going to remain roughly linear. We're going to get new jobless reports. I don't imagine that it's going to be a fun one, given the new jobless claims we've seen. Not a band account. Is the current food and fuel inflation here to stay? For a fairly long term, I'd say yes, unfortunately. Next news story. Liz Cheney on if she prefers Democrats hold the House majority. It's a tough question. Cheney said she'll no longer be a Republican if Donald Trump is the nominee in 2024. Here's your opportunity, Republicans. Nominate Donald Trump and Liz Cheney will go and join the Democratic Party. Let them have the Cheneys and Bushes. This is the best possible thing. To a millennial like me who remembers the Iraq War era, the invasion of Afghanistan, Katrina, and all of these other things from the W era, the best thing that you can do for your party is to just let them go. Let go, give up the ring of power that's called corporate infusions of cash and get back to your pre-nifty 50s era, not being the party of rich, evil people thing, and you'll get rewarded for that. You're already reaping the rewards now. The fact is that Liz Cheney is the ne'er-do-well, carpet-bagging daughter of one of the most notorious warmongers in U.S. history. Dick Cheney makes Henry Kissinger look like a rather tame individual. And she got fired by a margin of 40 points by her own state for not doing her job. The GOP can either re-embrace the neocon thing and completely fuck itself in the process, or it can embrace MAGA, make the switch to populism and quasi-populism, maybe throw in a little bit of libertarianism there. Yeah, throw us a bone, everyone. Throw us a bone, Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, and get back to business, trying to be the party that actually represents something that's meaningful for the average person. Look at the Dems. Do they? They've completely abandoned their principles. I remember the anti-war movement. It was primarily people who were on the left wing of politics. That was back in the 2000s. These people are currently clamoring to send more weapons to Ukraine. They're canceling Pink Floyd over it. We'll talk about that next. Boy, oh boy, was that a funny fucking story. The Spence Fencer. Watch laptop repair guy interview on Fox. It explains all the timing. For flavor, he is a legally blind albino. Not kidding. The FBI had the laptop for 18 months. Yeah, but they're not investigating it. They're not looking into it at all. Yeah, so Liz Cheney is threatening to leave the GOP if they nominate Trump. Please nominate Donald Trump. If ever, I mean, we've got another reason to vote for Trump if there's even a primary process. There's another reason to badger him over and over and beg him to run. Other than, hey, it's a Grover Cleveland moment, so that'll be exciting. It's the ultimate fuck you to the system. No, that's good, because fuck the system. I would think that leftoids would want to take up that slogan too. We're appropriating it for MAGA, I suppose, now. So fuck the system. And third, you get rid of the Bushes and the Cheneys and all this dross within the party. Oh my God, the Bushes don't want to be Republicans anymore. Who wants them in their party? Who wants Liz Cheney in their party? She can't even, in a state that's that red, she gets kicked aside because she didn't do her job. The Democrats didn't kick her out. The Republicans did. Liam Sexton, one advantage of being in Japan is the yen rate is so low. $1 takes you a long way out here. Joining the military right before COVID was a good move, despite all the wild crap I've been through. Yeah, I'd like to see Japan sometime. Josh Palillo, friendly reminder to keep your powder dry. Yes, and your gun well oiled. So, goodbye, Liz Cheney. You will probably be removing yourself from the Republican Party. Good riddance. Who gives a shit? Pamela Mel just stood and clapped. You go, Sticks. Thank you. Now we've got Pink Floyd to talk about, as promised. Polish venue cancels Pink Floyd co-founder Roger Waters' show after controversial Ukraine letter. Yes, he was saying, hey, we should stop sending a bunch of weapons to Ukraine because, it's becoming a problem. Now, think about what Pink Floyd represents. There has already been a heftily anti-state, heftily anti-war, heftily anti-authoritarian bent to all of their body of work throughout time. It seems to be all of the members, by the way. So why are you criticizing him at this point for going against the grain and saying, hey, you're sending weapons to a country that's right on the next door of a nuclear power, and now that nuclear power is threatening all of the things that we used to protest against and ridicule back in the old days, namely nuclear annihilation, warmongering, corporate corruption and stuff. Ukraine is a massively corrupt nation. It doesn't matter if you support the invasion or not. And I'll give my own views. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is wrong. I oppose it. Ukraine is a sovereign nation. Russia does not exercise any legitimate authority over places in Ukraine simply because they happen to have a Russian ethnic majority, because it's a civic entity. You're talking about a nation versus a group within that nation that at most times has generally gotten along with the population because they're part of the fucking population. Ukraine does, though, have massive systemic issues with corruption. The legacy media used to talk about this goddamn constantly. For years and years, they were talking about it. The second that they, even before they overthrew, I can't remember his name, Putin's dude that was basically a puppet prince there in the country. Even before that, they had massive corruption issues. It's never been a non-corrupt country. It's always been full of crime and money laundering and things like that, and oligarchism, same as much of Russian politics is. Now, all of a sudden, people are pretending that Zelensky happens to be the next coming of Jesus Christ. We're sending weapons. Think about this. Nuclear nations are sending weapons in to fight another nuclear nation. We are one step away from an actual war between nuclear states with regards to this issue. Now, I think cooler heads in the end prevail on that issue, but we're also doing brinksmanship right now with China. The United States, under the Biden administration, is doing the exact opposite of what it did under Trump. Under Trump, it was, we're going to build things up domestically, be more powerful. When we throw our weight around, we're going to be very reluctant to use weapons. We're going to do it with money. And it was working. We got rapprochement with North Korea. The Chinese were kind of pushing back and saying, shit, I don't know if our economy can take this. Okay, we're removing some tariffs because we don't want any problems. Russia was constrained. They weren't attacking Ukraine at the time. It was under Obama that they annexed Crimea. It's under Biden that they're now trying to annex the Donbass, etc. That policy worked because Trump understands how nations that aren't part of the Western core of the world actually operate. Biden and Obama and people like that who are career politicians only know how to deal diplomatically with nations that share very similar political and sociocultural enclaves. That is, those nations where you go there and the idea is that there's a very familiar sort of sense. You go to France, you're the president of the United States. You know you're going to be offered some eclairs and a glass of wine, and you're going to go and look at art and shit like that. That's easy. Anyone can do that. You know that there's going to be no bitter words. You've been friends for the last 200 fucking years. You go to Russia, there's going to be some brinksmanship and upstaging and things like that. You go to China, and there might be a test to see how manly you are. They might decide not to bow at the right time. A rug's not rolled out properly. Something is done that breaches normal cultural decorum to see if you'll notice because you're not stupid, number one. Trump noticed. Obama definitely didn't with his final meeting in China. And number two, to see if you'll do anything about it. In Biden's case, he's oblivious. He's not going to do anything about it. He's a goddamn puppet. He's an empty head. When I see, therefore, the dude from Pink Floyd protesting this and saying, look, we went over several Russian red lines with regards to this. I don't really care about Russia's red lines with regards to Ukraine. Again, a sovereign nation that can do whatever the fuck it wants. It doesn't make sense, though, to continue pumping it full of weapons and doing Afghanistan 2.0. If the Russian military is really so badly hammered right now that they're really using half-functional AK-47s and 100-year-old bolt-action rifles, why do we need to send more Stinger missiles? It sounds like the Russian military has systemically collapsed. Other than Zerg rushing the Ukrainians, what hope at that point would they have? The other possibility being the use of tactical nuclear weapons. I would like to point out to people, most Russian nuclear weapons are very, very large. You see, during the Cold War, two mentalities sprung up, okay? The Russians bet on dissuading people from attacking them by simply having overwhelming firepower. Huge number of very, very large missiles, like the Satan missile, one of the mainstays of their arsenal. The United States took a more tactical approach and said, no, we're going to focus on naval and air power, buff that up. Russia focused on land power mainly, tanks and artillery and shit, and also subs, by the way, to be fair, and made fewer weapons that tended to be better at targeting but smaller. And thus the cost overall became less. Generally related to the economy anyway. Of course, there's definitely a relativity there. The Russian situation is that they didn't build many of the smaller weapons. They were too busy building things in the 10 plus megaton range. That would be difficult to use. If you used one of those on Kiev, there wouldn't be a person living in the entire metropolitan region. That kind of egregious particular strike would be impossible against a military target because there are no military targets in Ukraine that wouldn't be near population centers. Even the Chinese would condemn it, withdraw from all arrangements with Russia, and it'd probably start a nuclear war. So if I think that Putin is genuinely off his rocker, or he decides to go down fighting and says, look, I'm clearly going to get stabbed by an oligarch anyway, fuck it. I'm just going to end the world and become the most notorious killer in mankind's history. If I assume he's truly that depraved, yeah, okay, we're facing down a nuclear gauntlet right now and we will probably all die. I don't think so, though. I think that they're puppeteers behind Putin as well. I don't think he's quite the dictatorial strongman some people suspect that he is. Todd Wood sent $20, but no comment. Thank you. MF Damien, sharing a little love on the old birth canal expulsion anniversary. Greetings from rural, desolate southern Illinois. Hail Santa. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, this year people will be begging Santa to bring coal into their stockings. They can use it to heat their home for a while. Broken Sword, I was sitting in the trucker's lounge when I got off work yesterday and CNN was on. One panelist said that Liz is the most conservative in the GOP. I shouted bullshit so loud the whole state heard. Lol. I hope that's a true story. Liam Sexton, I now understand why alcoholism and divorce rate is extraordinarily high in the military. Been in almost 3 years and I'm already a soft-core alcoholic and chain smoker. COVID probably didn't help. Yeah, you should probably just quit cold turkey as quickly as possible because it doesn't get easier the longer, you're in it. Ben Peters Brown, thoughts on Liz Truss, seeing signs she might have the balls that Boris didn't have, especially on globalist issues. I think she'll do an okay job. I think she'll be mediocre but acceptable, ultimately, at the end of the day. Cindy Drellick, I turned 54 boomers onto your channel. That's what I'm talking about. Most apparently, the median age of the audience is almost exactly the same as me, roughly 34, 35 years old. Shaker Silver, disagree. The teacher is no troll. If he's a repeat troublemaker, the school would have kicked him rather than defend him and take this controversy. I agree with you. I think that it's just a grift. I think that he's trying to do a frivolous lawsuit sort of thing and get paid by forcing them into an untenable situation where there's too much outcry and they have to fire him. But they can't do that without a discrimination lawsuit. And then they're like, fuck it, we'll just fucking pay you off. What do you want in a settlement? Go the fuck away. Here's $250,000 Canadian dollars. You can go buy some maple syrup or something. I agree with you. But it is possible. And even if he's a repeat troublemaker, if you game the system by taking advantage of the ethics code for that school, banning that kind of discrimination, you can one-up them. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, The Gruber Show on Real America's Voice, 5 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday. Played one of your clips this morning. Found your first live about 2 months and stay tuned in. Clank. Sounds pretty cool. Deadly Raver, this 5 is because you managed to put the Zergling rush into politics and nearly made me waste water everywhere laughing. Yeah, that's what China did in the Korean War, too. Friendly Neighborhood Sawyer, if war escalated, would Trump still be a good pick? Yeah, I would say a necessary pick. If things keep escalating, the more they escalate, the more you should have Trump in there because he actually knows what he's fucking doing with Asian politics. Hismanai, Happy Clank. That Manx guy, $5, no comment, thank you. Smooth Johnson, hi, are you going to do a live stream today? Bara, 54 is Gen X, not Boomer, just saying. Yeah, true, actually. Yeah. Although, isn't it older Gen X, I think? I don't know exactly where the cutoff is. I know I'm core millennial. That's all I know. Next one. Yes, Putin might use nuclear weapons. We need to plan for scenarios where he does. Putin's saber rattling doesn't necessarily mean he'll deploy nukes, but he certainly could. Yeah, absolutely. Russia's got thousands and thousands of them. Here's the problem. Again, let me reiterate for anyone that didn't catch me the first time. Here's the problem. The Soviet Union and now Russia field a very large number of very large nuclear weapons. The problem with deploying them is that the blast radius is so large, you can't help but fry a bunch of civilians just to take out a remote airbase. The amount of radiation released is also substantial. This is why the U.S. built systems that tend not to exceed 3 megatons. It was considered superfluous. Under the proper conditions, when you deploy those weapons, a 3 megaton weapon is already going to lay waste to the whole metro area. Yeah, do you realize how many people, for instance, if one blew up over Manhattan, it would fry everything in Manhattan, just do massive damage to everything else in core New York City and cause radiation and fires and shit like that. It'd cripple everything. Hell, the point of using a 30 megaton nuclear weapon like a Satan missile is almost pointless unless you're directing it against a massive military array like sparsely populated missile silos or something, because a much smaller weapon will cause such a firestorm that in the resulting chaos, the outside of the city will just continue to burn, especially if it's in a drought-ridden climate. Can you imagine what happens if LA gets hit? You wouldn't need a nuke. A bunker buster would be enough probably for LA. A fucking fat man, little boy, sort of an early atomic weapon would probably do the trick. Leave a giant hole in the city, causing massive chaos. You'd end up with looting. You'd end up with the destruction of much of the infrastructure. And if you're in a nuclear war and the enemy's already taken 50 or 60 hits by nuclear weapons, at that point, it no longer matters what the megatonnage is. It just doesn't matter anymore. In the resulting chaos, order breaking down, the economy collapses, the computers are off, the money in the banks is burned up, everyone's lost everything. There's too many people for too little production for a very long time, and then there's too few people to produce enough to actually occupy all the land long term because so many people have died. Cholera. I talked about this in After the Ashes, a book I wrote years ago. One of the most immediate results of a nuclear war wouldn't even have anything to do with the nukes. It'd have to do with disease. There'd be a lot of people that are left alive in certain areas. The water systems would become untenable, and they'd start dying of epidemic diarrhea. Ultimately, more people would shit themselves to death than get cancer from the fallout. Battle Elf, know your enemy. BW, remember when they used to say, as goes America, so goes the world? So now we need to copy Sweden and Italy. A guy under the bridge, I'd say my mind about RVW, but no uterus, no opinion. Alira Danaher, research pos comitatus. This blocks use of U.S. military being used in states unless requested by the state's governor. Yeah, I know. E100 Omega 123. Italians voting in an Italian who leads an Italian party full of Italians is a bigger threat to Italian democracy than unelected foreign bureaucrats telling Italians how they should vote. Yeah, that is kind of funny, isn't it? Liam Sexton, thank you, Sticks, for keeping me updated on U.S. politics. All the crazy stories make me glad I'm not in the U.S. at the moment. It's going to be weird going back there for vacation. Yeah, depending on where you're about, prepare for things to be significantly different than when you were there the last time. Dan Malone 53 sent $5 without a comment. Thank you very much. Next news story. Pentagon orders review of its overseas social media campaigns. Yes, the Pentagon is currently investigating itself. I'll just read some. The move comes after Twitter and Facebook shut down misleading accounts that they determined were sending messages to promote U.S. foreign policy. This must have the war pig liberals mad. How dare you? Those are run by the Biden administration, ergo they are good. Yeah, it's good to lie to people in order to advance your foreign policy, because if your foreign policy can only be advanced by lies, it means that it's a really good one. It's really beefy and wonderful. Washington. White House officials told the military they were concerned about its efforts to spread pro-American messaging on social media, prompting the Pentagon to order a review of secretive operations to influence populations overseas. Let me say something here. I made a video goddamn years ago. I think it might have even been in the 2000s. I can't imagine it's still operative at the moment. When it was revealed that Facebook, the U.S. Air Force had 10,000 dud Facebook accounts that it was using to like and dislike material, to put it out there to larger audiences, and to mill around and try to promote or demote content depending on whether it agreed with military policy. That was the late 2000s. I think W may have still been president when that happened. I remember it plain as day because I was so shocked, actually, when the news came out, because I was still a naive young liberal and didn't realize that the U.S. government could possibly find a legal purpose to doing so. Now I know better, partially because I'm no longer a liberal, by the way. There was a report, 10,000 or maybe even 12,000, I can't remember, accounts were being run by the Air Force. The Pentagon is going to pretend this is new. The Pentagon is pretending, well, we haven't reviewed any of this shit for the 15 plus years we've been doing it. All of a sudden, though, we have some concerns. Why? Is it because Facebook and Twitter, you didn't let them know which accounts were bullshit, and so they started banning a few of them because of your propaganda? I think they should all be banned. State propaganda should inevitably be banned on social media platforms. It's botting. It's usually not a real individual using the account. Well, botting should be banned. It's disrupting actual conversation, organic conversation between people. That's what I would say. Yeah, Russian disinfo accounts, ban them. Yeah, Air Force run Facebook accounts, ban them too. That nuance is lost for most people. BW, LA gets hit, and then cheering. Yeah, if Los Angeles got hit by an atomic weapon, a lot of people in the country, including most people in Los Angeles, probably wouldn't give a shit. In fact, a lot of people in Los Angeles wouldn't even notice the fucking difference depending on where it hit. Oh, some criminals got fried. Oh, whatever. Back to drinking and smoking crack. Battle Elf, will nukes be used this year or next? It's always possible, but it's never likely, thankfully. Sparky, baby boomers are between 57 and 77 nowadays. Okay, so there's your official boomer cutoff. I am a core millennial approaching 35 years of age. I think I look pretty good for 35. I'm aging a lot better than the leftoid craptivists. Most of those people, they're a decade younger than me, and for some reason, they look like they're pushing 40. I swear to God, look at their fucking pictures. Look at David Hogg, Parnas, all of these morons out there. They look 20 years older than they are in some cases. I don't know what the fuck they're doing to themselves. It has to be lack of protein. They're not getting enough proteins and vitamins and shit because they don't eat meat usually. They eat nothing but soyant. And so it's destroying their skin. Liam Sexton, so that's where all the military money is going. I've always wondered. I work on a 30-year-old equipment on a ship they refuse to decommission even though it's falling apart. That sounds like fun, though. I hope you got lots of good MREs. Man, I'd be in hog heaven if I had nonstop access to MREs. That would be pretty great. Joe, where can I find which candidates are Trump endorsed? I'm in Texas, and it's not easy. Google search. I don't know. I look up a Trump endorsed candidates list or something. There's got to be a list, but someone's compiled out there. Somebody help Joe out here. Yeah, look in chat. Somebody else can probably help you better than me. E100 Omega 123, narrativebusters.org, nuke leftist talking points, lies, and narratives. Not hard to nuke those since they're all inevitably wrong. Bartimaeus Carbulo 6684. We should launch weekly raids in Pixel Planet. Yeah, I don't want to do the Pixel Planet thing every day. Right now, basically, we're just counter-griefing against a handful of Turks who appear to be attempting to grief actually as we speak. Just to be clear, the Ouroboros does not need blue freckles in case that's a confused clanker. But just restoring that because I think they had some fun. There's also a big red blob not far north of there, south of the giant 10.2 monument. They had a massive ass, they laid waste to huge areas of Europe too. If you go around the map, you'll find Turkish flags randomly plastered all over. I'm surprised everyone else on the server hasn't teamed up to kick their ass. This is why we withdrew from Anatolia, because it was getting fucking boring. We took the whole thing over, and the second that we leave, nobody's capable of defending themselves. Like, I'm going to make a video every fucking day because of Pixel Planet. Come on. I've got other things that I have to do. Red Raider Matthias. Late to the stream, but did you talk about the British pound tanking this morning? Yes, I mentioned it. Is this a sign of the dark winter ahead? Clank. It's more likely a temporary movement in the pound, but it could be. It could be bad. Sharing for improvement. Hey, Sticks, how do I not get blackpilled? I still try because it's worth it, but I don't have confidence in the intelligence of the populace. Then improve your own intelligence, and then realize that you become like a king among men, and you can exceed the populace. Learn a new skill. Learn something, learn a new language, take up a side gig, a side hustle of some sort, learn how to grow things. Oh, you know how to grow them? Learn how to cook them better or can them or something. Everything that you know how to do and do skillfully is an asset, and then you become as well more of an asset to the population. You don't need to have confidence in other people's intelligence. If anything, you should assume that most people in the world are morons, because they are. Baker Boy, just make sure to eat the gum sticks. You'd need it. Liam Sexton, unfortunately, we don't get MREs. I get hot meals that occasionally are decent. I ain't no crayon eater, our friendly nickname for Marines. Yes, I've heard that one before. My dad was in the Marines. That's sad. Certainly, there's got to be a way that you can get a hold of them, though, if you're in the military. A guy under a bridge. I believe them people turning into Disneyland pirate skeletons is a natural phenomenon, population control. Notice how people in denser populations have lower fertility. Joker 1 on Rumble. Humans evolved as omnivores. Meat is murder. Sweet, tasty murder. Yeah, but processed meat shouldn't generally be eaten. And having some hamburger once in a while is fine. You should eat like steak or something like that. The less processed it is, the better for you, generally speaking. So bacon is basically a health food. I agree with this sentiment. White House advisor Keisha Bottoms. Sounds like Booty Judge. Biden's been very clear MAGA Republicans plan to essentially destroy the United States of America. Hyperbole, thy name is. You can listen to this video. It's only a couple of minutes long and really funny. Listen to how many times she reiterates the phrase MAGA Republicans. She says it, I think, 8 or 9 times during this particular clip. What they're trying to do is they're trying to crack the neocon MAGA alliance, which is a tenuous one, because right now the Democrats are experiencing still a deep schism where the leftoids aren't really on board with a lot of the policies. They had to get them back aboard the Biden short bus by buying votes effectively. And it kind of worked, to be clear. With the Republicans, the neocon types are sort of just grinning and bearing it with regards to the fact that they're being overrun by populist candidates. What the Democrats are seeking to do, therefore, is astroturf a further rift, like a schism, ahead of the midterms. And by calling, 75 plus million Americans extreme and saying that they want to destroy the United States. So in other words, to be clear, the U.S. is so failed, according to the Democrats, that a large proportion, a near majority of the voting public wants to destroy the country entirely. That's really what they're going with. This is way beyond deplorables, but it's nonsense. MAGA seeks to restore the country. If anything, the leftoids are the ones mainly trying to destroy it, and the Democrats are the ones whining and dining them for cheap votes every time. Friendly Neighborhood Sawyer. Eat bugs in San Angeles or rat burger underground? Well, bugs sound better than rat meat, to tell the truth. No, rats tend to be rather uncleanly creatures. Sparky, Soros got rich around 1990 by shorting the pound. Yeah, and he made his debut by turning people into the Gestapo, actually, if I remember correctly. Josie, what was the book and author that you and others read and recommend? Something about an elephant and a boat. Trying to find it and get a copy. An elephant and a boat? Are you talking about the story of Noah's Ark? If you mean, if it was a fictional work and involved votes, it was probably Elfin Ship, ELFIN Ship, by James P. Blaylock. I don't know though. Others read and recommended. Yeah, it's probably. I think it's not about an elephant in a boat. It's about 3 men on a raft, and they have a dog with them. Actually, no spoiler alerts from me though. The Landlord Harassment Channel, MAGA and Antifa, 2 sides, same coin. Yeah, I think that everyone in MAGA and Antifa would both disagree with you on that one. Alira Danaher. Blue state governors specifically didn't request U.S. military support during the 2020 riots in L.A. Katrina to hurt Republican presidents. True. Absolutely. And the final news story. We've got a post by the Occupy Democrats here. We'll analyze this a little bit. Breaking! Donald Trump rips into MAGA Governor Ron DeSantis as fat, phony, and whiny, even though he has called him a great friend in the past. Clearly worried that DeSantis will run in 2024. RT if you would never vote for either of them. Here's the problem. This is based on unnamed sources in a book written by a New York Times columnist. The post is completely false even in that context. It doesn't mean that he's calling him anything. The claim is that a couple of fucking years ago he said these things. We don't have a source. We have a partisan individual writing a book that's putting that forth. And why would Trump be worried that DeSantis would be running in 2024? If this is a private statement, if Trump was worried, wouldn't he do what he usually does and call it to his face? I think so. The Occupy Democrats have been consistently full of shit. By the way, I've also seen something else a lot lately, which is that you've seen leftoid craptivists trying to whip up the support base to go and vote, knock on doors and shit, trying to refresh them because they had been feeling demoralized for so long by citing polls that don't exist. There are some cases in which they're saying, well, X candidate is up by 6 points. RT, if you think this is a great thing, hashtag Rovember. And then I look and I can't find any goddamn source whatsoever. They don't post it. Whenever I post something with regards to polls, I post a goddamn link because, I want people to understand that it's not full of shit. Then go to the link. They can check it their fucking selves. I never see that from the leftoid craftivists. By the way, why is Pete Buttigieg trending here? Maybe there's new news. Did he just fix a train with his asshole or something? Oh, no, I guess he's just talking about Ron DeSantis. People calling him a great communicator. By the way, before he was part of the Biden administration, I do remember a lot of you people ridiculing Pete Buttigieg, yonder leftoids out there, because you felt that he was creepy and inauthentic, and also very limited in his capabilities based on the fact that he's only literally ever been a backwater mayor. The mayor of Buddy Judge, mayor of South Bend, and he really likes how to run trains. The jokes fucking make themselves. Let's see. Battle Elf, Israel fighting proxy war with Russia via Ukraine because Syrian warm water ports. That wouldn't make any sense. No, I don't think that Israel is currently giving the Ukrainians anything, actually. Cindy Drellick for diapers. Love you, Sticks. Thank you. Joe C. That's the book. Thank you. Just hard of hearing. Yes, trust me, you will love The Elfin Ship if you like comfy literature. You'll have to get a used copy. It hasn't been in print since the late 80s, but there are plenty of copies available. Actually managed to email the author, Blaylock, at one point. Encouraged him to think about trying to get something going to re-release that, number one, and potentially expand the series. I think the 3 books in that series are all very comfy, but The Elfin Ship stands out as particularly the best of the 3. The others are, The Stone Giant and The Disappearing Dwarf. I think The Stone Giant was my least favorite. It doesn't have Jonathan Bing or the Professor or anything like that. I liked The Disappearing Dwarf, but it was a little bit more serious, and the pacing, in my opinion, was a little bit off. Like it sort of shifted from long, slow, descriptive sections to really, really quick action. The Elfin Ship kind of does that, but it tends to smooth it out more. And The Disappearing Dwarf, to me, just felt more rushed. Like the story wasn't quite as refined. Like, there was one last go through for The Elfin Ship that The Disappearing Dwarf didn't have. Stone Giant had great pacing, in fact, arguably better than The Elfin Ship, but it didn't have some of the characters that I really, really liked from Elfin Ship. If I had read it first, I probably would have liked it better than I did. Musically Assured Destruction. Do you have any future debates planned with any leftoids or uniparty types? Yes, be going on BTR at some point, although I did have to say that I needed to reschedule the interview that had been planned for the 29th. Lance Corporal Veteran on Simpcast, Leanne Starr said Seattle Antifa members reached out to her and they admitted some are paid rioters. Of course they are. They don't need to admit it. We already knew it. JWT6577, Pete wasn't just a mayor. He was in the CIA too. Honk, honk. We're talking about political experience. Battle Elf. Exactly. Israel is hands-off for plausible deniability. I don't even know if I can say the rest of that. I certainly can't say it the way you're saying it. Just to be clear, we are on YouTube at the moment. Just a sec here. If this were a Rumble exclusive, I don't think anyone would give a fucking shit. But I'm not going to get my channel endangered just to make a chuckly joke. Yeah, just wait until there are more sites with good streaming for exclusives. Twitch banned me. Very sad. They didn't even ban me for anything that I said on the platform. They banned me for off-site behavior, apparently. Sung-sation, some real schizos super chatting today. That is every day. We are an eclectic society, us clankers. Wouldn't have it any other fucking way, by the way. I don't mind a bit of the trolling. A lot of people don't even read out their super chats. I mean, I'm doing people a solid by doing that, especially considering how many there are. Some commentators don't. Of the 100 chats whiz by, they may choose a couple of them. Some of them cut it off. You have to, there's a mandatory minimum that you have to fucking donate just for them to read it out or something. Doc Holliday, didn't Pete have a butt baby? Yes, Pete and his husband do have an adoptive child. And Chasen, his husband, and Pete took a lot of time off after that. And it was very funny because you had major transportation woes, and the transportation secretary is taking paternal leave. People thought that that was rather funny, that he gets the capability of doing that when literally no one in the working class has that kind of leave in the United States, unless they know their boss really well. Joe, some Trump-endorsed candidates in Texas are Wayne Kerr, Betty Humpter, and Mike Oxlong. I do realize that that's not actually the case. Wanker, get it? I got it. I do like that kind of joke, by the way. Some people would probably refuse to read it out. I find it great. Another one is IP standing. By the way, right now, there are, 6,000 people, I think, watching cross-platform. Potato Buggy on Rumble. Your coverage of the little sperm-made drag show for kids creeped me out. Yeah, I did a new tech exclusive today. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, you really should be joining me on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, or Minds.com. Because keep in mind, I do an exclusive video every single day that doesn't go on YouTube, usually because of edgy content, and today was no exception. I had to talk about the Chattanooga drag show. It was like a youth pride event. There's some questionable footage from it, some rather concerning material there, and you should definitely watch that video on one or more of those platforms. It's and then this is Chattanooga, Tennessee, to be clear. This isn't San Francisco or New York or something like that. This is, the heartland sort of thing. It's a red state. I'm finding it. I find it strange. Yeah, there's 1,500 people watching just on Rumble right now. I see the Ouroboros is back and is being improved over on Pixel Planet. Again, there is a link in the description. You can remove all that red shit in that flag where the Ouroboros is supposed to be. Maybe this time do it without wings. I mean, you can still see the outline where the Turks were griefing it, actually, on the right side, which is funny. They'll be back tonight and probably grief it again. Then I can just help repair it again. They've been obsessed with that. Apparently, someone told them the clankers were the ones that overran all of Turkey for an entire week. By the way, Turkey still looks like a pile of crap on Pixel Planet. Look at Ataturk up there. Someone tried to turn him into a pig and has got a swastika on his forehead, and I don't even know what the rest of it is going on. There is nothing orderly. When clankers took over all of your land, did we just make a mess, or did we actually attempt to make something of value? Ours was very orderly. We made beautiful works of art, some of which were Christian or paganistic in nature. We didn't just randomly spam out pixels on a live stream. We did it the proper way. I don't know if the live streamer is like Turkish nationalist or just wants to grief. I think, though, probably the latter, based on how Turkey looks at the moment. It is, it's a mess. To be clear, no effort has been made whatsoever in anything that they have built, including their own flag, just to be clear. Peyton Walter, make sticks rich. Yes, thank you. You just sent me $200, so yeah, there's a stepping stone there. That buys a lot of diapers, by the way, or energy drinks. And I can't remember exactly how much these cost. I can probably buy a crate of them for that. Thank you very much, my dude. Jack Torrens, here's Johnny. Say it. I just did. Here's Johnny. Battle Elf, my ontology correctly describes, explains, and predicts the current situation. The fact you can or won't discuss proves this. Now, it means that the rules on YouTube I don't necessarily agree with. I personally do not have any problem with anything that's lawful speech, up to and including a limited amount of spam. Get it all the time anyway, so there's nothing they can do about it. As a long-term troll, as a lover of griefing, especially on Minecraft, and I goddamn wish I had downloaded those videos and put them on a secondary channel instead of being worried that it would get my channel taken down back in the day. I had several dozen really good ones back then. Some of it was really, really funny. I do not get easily offended as someone who is into that sort of thing. Mr. Avila, who has the best mustache in rock? Oh, I don't know. Other people can weigh in, I guess. Freddie Mercury, I suppose. But he's dead, so. I don't know. Billie Eilish, she'll probably end up with one. Zoomer style and all that stuff. They'll be any day now. They'll be putting growth hormones on their upper lip and calling it an attack on toxic masculinity. Roberto Gonzalez sent $2. No comment. Thank you very much. Michelle Bode on Rumble. Hey, Sticks, I'm about to make a lovely lemon cake roll to console me during the hurricane. Are you baking yet? No, I have not yet. I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I will ruin whatever I attempt to bake, even if it's flatbread. I was going to make dumplings, herby dumplings for the stew. And then I said, well, if I cook them separately, they won't taste quite as good. And if I cook them right in the stew, I may fuck up. And if I fuck up and they dissolve into the stew, it's going to turn into glue. So I decided not to. I made do with just regular bread. Lego Creation 06. First ship was an LST. We had all the MREs. They had to post guards on the next pallets. Lol. I know some of the stuff, and especially US MREs, are pretty good. I hope that people understand military food, at least in that form, is not bad. There's a reason why there are so many channels that exist just to eat MREs. Folly Pollard, straight up, dog. Allison, MREs make you constipated and probably give you cancer. Ask a military friend to buy you one at the commissary, or they might have some spare ones. Yeah, they probably do have cancer-causing stuff, and that's how you know that they'll be tasty. Princess, Lemmy Motorhead, best mustache in rock. Yeah, Lemmy's mustache, pretty cool. Well, wait and see. Imagine Marilyn Manson gets a goatee or something like that. That'd be funny. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go off now because we've covered all the news stories. At this point, I'm just rambling. Again, there are links in the description on both platforms. If you want to join in restoring the Ouroboros on Pixel Planet, it's basically just a fuck you to the people that griefed it, I suppose, even though they will be back to do it again tonight. Probably in the next, I would guess, 2 hours or so. ETA, 2 hours. And one last one. Rob S. Nice, you have 4K watching on YouTube. Thoughts on Nevada going red? The liberal hive mind thinks it will flip red in the midterms. I'll have to wait until the very last minute in the final slurry of polls for some of these races, and Nevada's races are 2 of them, along with the Pennsylvania race, Oz versus Fetterman, and a few others. There are some where I'm more sure than others, and I already talked about in the other day. Lake versus Hobbs down in Arizona for the gubernatorial slot. Lake is coming from behind. I feel optimistic for some reason that Lake wins in the end. Again, though, we're going to need quite a few more polls. Princess, oops, Lemmy. The way you spelled it was funny. All right, that's about all. Peace out.